Welcome back to me yarns. Weather report. It's a little bit sunny outside now. It's been sunny last couple of days, but by it's been windy. What are we getting done on the tractor? Not a lot, I tell you. Monday, raining all day, horrible cold day. Couldn't get nothing done outside, couldn't get anything done at all on the farm. Tuesday, like today, really bright sunny day, but by it was blowing a gale. Went up to film the axle job, getting the pipework took out of the axle, getting some plates took off the bottom of the axle, set the camera up. The camera got blown over a couple of times. That's how windy it was. And then everything just seemed to go wrong. You know when you get one of them days where everything just goes wrong. First of all, we got the connector off the top of the pipes. That came off. That came off nicely. Looking back on it, probably a little bit too nicely. You get the idea that somebody been in and not really tightened the bolts. So that came off. Looked inside, you can see it on the pipe. I'll give you a look at the pipe in a minute. You can see it on the pipe where the oil feed from the valve chest to this connector block to the spray bar, which is supposed to spray oil onto the gearbox and into the diff casing, was bone dry. Absolutely bone. Hadn't had oil through it for a very long time, which is also reflected in the state of the gearbox. When we took the lid off the gearbox, the top of the gearbox was really rusty, as if it had been running hot and condensed, and all the water had condensed on the top. The oil was horrendous colour when I drained the oil off the gearbox when I first got the tractor. But anyways, started getting them out. There's a triple keeper plate under that connector plate, 2 screws in that keep the pipes up inside the connector while you pop it over the top of the O-rings. 1 screw came out, 1 screw had to be drilled out, and again it's just, God knows, it just had to be drilled out. There's nothing else we could have done. We've got some of the oil feed lines out from there. One we couldn't get out, and when we eventually get the video sorted, you'll see that the diff lock actuator stops it from coming out. I've got to take the diff lock actuator out to allow the pipe work to drop. This is the one with the little manifold block on the bolt onto the front of the valve chest, and that is the supply line to the 3-way valve and the lift cylinder. So we've got to get that off. The front of that actuating lever is kept in place by a circlip, which isn't there, a key in the shaft, which is there, but the actual lever itself is corroded onto the shaft and onto the key, and I didn't take my heat gun with us, so we couldn't progress that any further from there. And the fact that I need all of the pipe work in good condition, I wasn't prepared to try and force the pipe work out just to get it out. I'll go back on another day and we'll stick a load of heat on it and we'll get it off somehow. It will come to bits. I have a friend who always says if it was made and it went together, it will always come to bits and get repaired and go back together. So we'll get it sorted. So literally after that, on Tuesday, I just gave up. It was pointless trying to do anything. It was too windy. I had the microphone tucked under me jumper trying to stop the wind noise, and when you listen back to it, you still get an awful lot of wind noise. As I say, the fact that the camera got blown over a couple of times was like, right in the oil. Right, so we'll quickly I knew that would happen. You look at it, even though it was tucked in behind the old back tyres and the final drive cases that's in a crate, it's still got blown over. But never mind, it will get done, it will get filmed, and you will see it at some point. I don't know when. So Wednesday we had to take a trip to Scotland. We were going to deliver one of Gemma's bulls, Goliath, to a farm in Annan in Scotland, where he's going to become the prime breeding bull up there. And we went across Wednesday morning. Gemma dropped the little ones off at school, come back, we got them loaded, and away we went. Gets onto the A1 at Morpeth, travels down, across the bridge at Midford, coming up the other side, just got round the corner onto the straight line towards Clifton, and a Land Rover lost all power. Just literally died to death. It's just come out of the garage. It went in last week because it busted a turbo boost pipe. So I went in, got that repaired, came back out, very similar symptoms, and it just died to death. Now luckily that's a straight stretch of road. It's about 1.5 miles long in a straight line. Once you get round the corner off the bridge over the Wansbeck at Midford, it's a straight line up the hill. So I jumped out of the car, walks about 100 yards back behind the trailer to start and warn drivers to move over into the right hand lane to keep away from the back of the trailer. All the commercial drivers, the wagons, they were coming round the corner 1 mile away from the trailer. And we were about 1 mile up the road, and you could see all the trucks. As soon as they came round the corner, the drivers got their eye on what was going on. They could see the trailer with the hazard lights on. They could see us on the roadside. They were indicating, moving to the right hand lane. Some of them were putting the hazard lights on, slowing the traffic down, trying to control the situation. Some of the car drivers, honestly, just really unbelievably stupid. I could not believe some of the things that were happening. We phoned the police to get the police out because we knew that if we attempted to move the trailer up the hill at crawl speed, we would get hit in the back, because if we had gone back to the car to get into the car to move it up the road, then we would have lost the safety of me and my daughter waving the traffic over to the side. So we had to phone the police. We had a marked car turn up, we had an unmarked car turn up. The marked car was staying behind us with all his lights on. The unmarked car was in front of us, sitting with his tyres on the central white line with all his lights on, and there was still a car trying to pull in between the two of us. And you look at it and you just think, what part of this don't you guys get? You know, really, can you not drive beyond the end of your bonnet and see what's going on? But never mind, we got to Stanley service station. We got to sort it out. We rang a neighbour and farm neighbour who lent us his Toyota Toyota pickup truck, and we set off with that. Alan took the Jeep home, we took the Toyota up to Annan, and we got Goliath delivered. So he got dropped off in the field, and away he went with his girls, happy as a little lark. Hoping he'd be a little bit happier than it. It was a beautiful field, lovely sunny day up there, out in the countryside, nice and quiet, overlooking the Solway, absolutely beautiful. So thanks to the two policemen, who was Lurch and John, turned up. John got his photograph took with the bull. We opened the top half of the pedestrian door at the front, and Goliath popped his head out. John got his picture took, got a selfie took with him. But I mean, he's a big lad. He's got to be a ton. He's got to be a ton in weight. And our concern was that someone was going to go into the back of the trailer, have a very serious accident, and possibly he could have gotten out of the trailer onto the road and have to be destroyed by the armed officers, because although he's a massive gentle giant at home, when he's in the sheds, you can go in, you scratch his back, you scratch his ears, you scratch his backside. He's a lovely gentle giant, but in a different situation on the road with this high stress of the traffics and everything, you just don't know what they're going to do. But anyway, it didn't happen. Everything got sorted. He got away up to his girls, to his Scottish girls. So he'll be doing the Kylie there this afternoon with them. But so, what else did we get done then? Tell you what, I'll give you a quick walk around what we got took out of the axle, and I'll show you where we got to. All right. So here's my oil drain pan. We got out. This is the pipe that attaches to the side of the valve chest. That stubby pipe there, the T-piece that comes up into the connector on top of the back axle, and along there at the end of that pipe comes this one with the spray bars on it. We have here, this is the oil supply pipe from the hydraulic pump up to the connector on the back axle. And the other piece here we've got is that connects onto the pipe that is still in the axle at the junction just beside the diff, and it comes up to the 3-way and hydraulic cylinder up here this end. At some point in its life, this tractor's blown up a bearing in the back end, because as we were cleaning it out, down in the bottom of the diff we found lumps of roller, lumps of shell, outer race. There's a pin here, which I think, wait a minute, let's get this out the bag. I pulled this out the bottom of the diff on Tuesday, and it's some sort of pin. I'll get it out the bag, I'll come back. So, I pulled this out the bottom of the diff. Wasn't sure what it was because it was covered in muck and oil, and I've just given it a quick wipe there, and it is the bottom of a gear stick, which just shows you, that snapped off, how hard a life this little tractor's had. What's left in the bag here? These are bits of bearing in here, and I mean, there, that's a roller off a bearing, but bearings fail, don't they? You cannot do anything about bearings failing. But it's like, really? You've leant on a gear stick so much, you've snapped the bottom off it. Do you not think it's time to take the lid off and have a look if you're needing to lean on a gear stick that much that you snap the bottom off the gear stick? But anyways, what, doesn't matter. But I wanted to see, I felt the button on the end, and I thought it might have been like a dowel that was out of the rear PTO cover, but as I say, it's not. It's the bottom off a gear stick. So somebody's changed out the gear stick at some point. When we get back up to the farm next week to finish off this filament of the axle, I'll show you inside the axle case where the gearbox bolts onto the axle case, and this is how rough they've been with it. They've knocked off inside the axle case the castings that are tapped for the nuts and bolts, or the bolts to go into, that hold the gearbox and the axle case together, which is probably why it only had half the bolts in that it should have had in when I took it to bits. I think there's four of the castings being knocked off inside, and I've actually had to plug the holes with silicone to stop the oil coming out. You know, it's just, at some point you look at it and think, how rough can people be with machines? You know, as I say, the bearings do blow up, that happens. They're not serviceable items. We don't change bearings at 5,000 hours, 6,000 hours, whatever. We tend to change them once they've collapsed or once they've gone noisy. but you don't tend to take hammer and chisels and knock the insides of the castings just to get bits to fit in again, do you? Right, what else have we got here? We've got the rear brackets. So we've got the brackets here. These are soaking at the minute in paint stripper. This one looks like it's a big raised edge on it here. I don't know if that's from manufacture or abuse. I don't know. But they'll get a good clean up, sort out, put them back together. Right. All the bolts, there's 4 bolts in here, all grade 8s. No, sorry, grade 5s. These are grade 5 high tensiles. They've all been wire brushed, cleaned up and put in there. 3 of the locking tabs have been wire brushed. The 4th one is all eaten away here. But Colin's a saviour, isn't he? When I bought me axle, the spare axle case off Colin, I explained to him that the previous owner had only put them back together with half the nuts and bolts required. So I asked Colin, when you're taking the axle out, if you don't need the nuts and bolts, could you throw them in a bucket please and send them down to us? And he sent us a great big bucket of nuts and bolts all off the back axle when he's removed it from the tractor, the donor tractor. So I've got spare locking tabs for those up at the farm in my bucket. I've got some spare bits and pieces up there as well, and I have got a spare oil feed line for that. And if memory serves me right, I think all or most of those pipes are still in the axle case as well. We'll have a look, but that's why we had to take those out carefully, because I'm not quite sure. I cannot remember, it's been that long since I looked at it. I cannot remember what's in that axle, but we'll have a look and see. We'll get it all sorted out. A little connector cover, we got that off, no problem. Just the O-rings, keeping a hold of that. That was tight to come off, it was just the O-rings hanging on to it. Now when I did take it off, you could see oil had been flowing quite easily through the rear port and the centre port. The front port, which is the spray bars and the feed either from or to the side of the valve chest, that was dry, and the fitting, 2 ticks, the fitting, this fitting here, which is the one that comes up through the axle and goes into the front cover in here, this was all dry and crusty, and the pipe was dry. And because that's just a simple, oh no, it's not, that's just a bleed, isn't it? That's just the bleed for that. I'll just quickly whip that, yes. Right, my mistake. I was thinking that there was a cross feed going on here between middle and 2 outlets, and it's not. So the oil feeds from the middle to the rear port on this, which then takes it through to the valve chest via the little manifold block. It then returns from the valve chest through here. It must return through here from the valve chest along here to the spray bars, and this is a bleed port, or it could also be an additional take-off port, couldn't it, for an alternative hydraulic fitting. But anyway, that was dry. It's looks damp and wet now because I've been at it with my greasy little fingers, but that was dry, which would then also lead into the fact that the top of the gearbox and everything else was corroded and dry and hadn't been sprayed with oil for a very long time. I think that's about all we're getting done. We haven't, as I say, we haven't getting a lot done. It's just been one of them weeks, you know, where you do or you don't. The only good thing is we've got a lot of tidying up in the garage done. I've got at least half my garage empty now, and all I've got is the engine left in terms of big castings in here. Everything else has gone back to the farm. And as I say, I think that's about it. Well, I'm sorry we couldn't get that other video together for you this week, but circumstances are what they are, and things happen, don't they? And you've got to deal with them as they happen. So, thank you very much for visiting this week. If you liked it, please give us a thumbs up, like, subscribe. It's helped my channel to grow. I think we're up to 145 subscribers at the minute, which is good. It's grown nice and steady. Getting a lot of nice feedback from people, which is, again, very helpful, very good. So, thank you very much, and we will see you hopefully in the middle of the week or at the back end of next week with the video finishing off, stripping this axle out and getting things ready. Alright, thank you very much. Bye now.